Tonight, our workshop is about working with collage. And that is my favorite subject. I love behind me, I have collage, a collage painting here, and there's a collage painting up there. Actually, let me turn you a little bit so you can see. So that one has a whole bunch of collage in it as well. I usually start with some sort of paint base color and then I collage and then I put more paint and more goodies on it. But tonight, our focus is on working with some of the rice paper goodies that we, well, when we were doing the landscapes and the birds last week, we were actually doing a whole bunch of what I call testing on rice paper. And I'm looking right here, like for instance, we were testing strokes. We were testing, I tested some characters like that. And so with the Asian painting, you tend to start with just making strokes and warming up on rice paper. So these are some of the pieces, like here's a piece here. You recognize the strokes from the book. And then there was, let's see what's behind that, I think is characters. And behind that is some trees. And then here's some more trees. But this is done on very thin rice paper. And the cool thing is you don't have, you can do these warm-ups and then you can take that paper, save it. You don't have to throw it away. You can save it and use it in your collage artworks. And so that's what I do. I don't throw these out. I save them and I use them. And I'm looking for the artwork that I made for this workshop using some, there's this paper's torn because I used some of it in this workshop, in this piece of art, I'm sorry, right here. So let me take it out of the plastic so it's easier for you to see. There you go. So this is the piece that I did for this workshop. And you can see there's the tree on rice paper. Down here, there's a little village on rice paper, a pagoda. Where else did I put rice paper? Underneath here is where I put those pieces that had the mark making on it. And then you see the red right here, that was also done. Those jig-jaggy lines were done on rice paper as well. And so you can create you can save what you're working on if you're just doing practice and warm-ups. I recommend that you do it on, if you're doing your warm-ups, do your warm-ups um, just to start your day on rice paper. And then if you're using rice paper, you'll be able to save those to use in your collages or decoupage or anything like that. So let me real quick, like here, hold on just a second. Um, what I wanted to do was pull out some rice paper so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is rice paper. So it says Oriental rice paper. And these items like this, I will link in the description of the video tomorrow on YouTube. So if you want to, bonsoir, someone said bonsoir over on YouTube. Yes, welcome in. And so these items like this rice paper will be linked in the video. And I just love the rice paper because it goes down into your collage or your decoupage so easily. And because it's relatively thin, and you can paint on either side, there's a rough side and a smooth side. Uh, when you glue it down using what I'm going to be showing you today onto your surface, it's nice because, oops, they don't fit back in there very well. So I'll just have to leave that out and it's ready to go, right? For my next session of warm-ups. Okay. Um, what was I saying? Um, oh, so you'll be able to save those warm-ups and use them in your collages. Like for instance, right here, these characters right here, these Chinese characters, I was working on a piece of practice paper for my calligraphy. And there you go. So that was some of my practice paper, but I just tear it into pieces and put it into my artwork. So I'm very excited to show you that. But we're also going to be working with something else, which is fine art papers or other types of collage papers. So for instance, this is a roll of fine art paper. So if you find yourself either in a craft store, or this came from a shop like a Dick Blick or Jerry's Artorama, they have these beautiful, oh, just gorgeous craft papers, or this is a fine art paper that you can use in your artworks. And so if you look at this piece again, you see, I used a part of it here and I cut some of it out there and cut some of it out there. So that's using this fine art paper. You can actually use any paper. And I'm going to show you some tricks as we go along when we get to the part where we're over top of the table and we're actually doing it. Now, uh, I did mention that sometimes I will put this paper over top of a surface that I've already painted. So let me show you some of those, because as I'm painting la 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 la, and I have leftover paint on my brush, I don't let that paint go to waste. I take that paint and I use it on another surface in order to just pay it forward, right? I have a no paint left behind policy in my studio. So if I've got acrylic paint and let's say I've mixed it up on my palette, usually I use palette paper like, oops, palette paper like this. So there's some palette paper. So if I'm mixing up and using my acrylic paint on a palette, which is just this shiny paper like this, um, and then I'm finished with the artwork that I'm working on. If I have leftover paint, what I do is I take either, this is a, you see here, like a Blick board. This is a canvas board. So this is, oh, what's it called? It is cotton canvas that they put on top of a board. And you can see here, if I have leftover paint, I will just grab a couple of boards and cover the surface so that I already have paint on a surface ready to rock and roll, ready to start. Another way that I use it is I make a lot of greeting cards. And so the greeting cards I make are 5x7 size. So I have a lot of 4x6 paper. So these are actually 4x6 postcards. You see that? But this is watercolor paper. So I just put the acrylic paint. This one happens to be a metallic one, but I put the acrylic paint on these postcards, and this is another type of paper. It's a handmade paper with what's called a decollage. That means a raw edge. And this paper is also approximately 4x6. You can see there, that also has some metallic acrylic on it. This is another one that doesn't have the metallic on it. Okay. So those are a type that I would use as well. And then this one is a board, and I was experimenting on it with some texture. So there's some texture underneath the acrylic paint there. But to me, that's not a finished painting, that's an experiment. And so since it was an experiment, oh, thanks for the hearts over on whatnot. I appreciate it. Since it was an experiment, you can see I already started to do some collage on here. So that's the perfect thing to do to finish up a piece like this, is to come in and do some more collage. The nice thing about the rice paper that I was mentioning earlier is that it's a very thin paper. So if I were to put the thin rice paper on top of this texture, as I'm laying it down on top of the texture, I can push on the paper and that will allow that texture to show through. So that's another good reason to use rice paper with your, at least in my case, experimentation like this. But when you're working on a textured surface, it's great because the rice paper is, when it's wet, it's very loose and it can go over top of a textured surface. Now, let's see. Another thing that I like to do with my uh, with these types of artworks is I like to accent them with a 3D paint. And this is the 3D paint that I like to use. It's by Pebeo, and it is a three-dimensional paint that you can just squeeze right out of the tube, or sometimes I squeeze it onto a palette and pick it up with a palette knife and use it with a palette knife. It comes in a bunch of different colors. And this is actually a giveaway tonight. So some lucky winner may win this tube, and I'm going to show you how to use it. But that's what I like to use to accent my artworks to give it a little bit of a 3D effect. And I'm going to show you a piece that I did with that. And so this is one of my journals. You can see like all of the I think this whole journal, yeah, this whole journal is filled up. But here's a piece that I did. And initially, it was just I'm going to show you kind of the back. So you see this one, the next page that has all this color blocking on it, just little areas of color. If you look at the back of this one, you can see I started out with just blocks of color. And then what did I do on top of that? So you could take your leftover even watercolor paint and you can slap it onto a page in a journal like this, and it can just sit there for years and wait until you're ready to do a collage. So here I did a collage with a bunch of some postage stamps that I like to use. And then uh, I also did some acrylic painting on top of it. But you see the hair right there and the eye right there, like that's the eyelashes and the outline for the eye. That's all done in that 3D paint that I just showed you. So the CERN relief from Pebeo, the 3D paint I use for all of that accent work. And we're going to be doing that today together. Woo! And so if you don't have a journal that already has some markings in it, then you can absolutely just grab some watercolor paper. That's my favorite to use because watercolor paper generally is 110 to 140 pounds, and even higher, meaning even thicker. But this is the typical watercolor paper that I use in the studio, the Canson XL watercolor paper. But these are loose sheets. So this is a loose sheet, although, and so they tear off. Although you can get watercolor paper that's 140 pound in a ring binder as well. It's just a lot more expensive than this. I think this is a mixed media book. Let me see here on the cover. What's the cover? Ooh, so this happens to be B paper, BEE paper, and it says it's heavyweight drawing paper, 193 pounds. So it's heavy enough that it can take a lot of media. Usually, if it's 90 pounds or higher, it's considered mixed media paper often. And so you can use mixed media paper for these types of effects that we're going to be doing because you're going to be layering on top of the paper some more paper. And so that makes the mixed media paper that's a little bit lighter in weight, makes it heavier because you're putting extra on it, right? Now, what are we going to be using to attach our papers to this either watercolor paper or, let me see, let's flip through here. I made some marks here in my journal. So I'm like, okay, let's flip over. Oh, look, there's a page where I put extra paint, right? When I have extra paint left over. Let's look at the next page. Same thing. I had extra paint left over, so I just slapped it on to a journal page. And I think there's another one here too. Yep, another one. Extra, extra paint, no paint left behind, right? So it's handy to have notebooks like this, spiral bound books. Some people call them an art journal, to be able to put that extra paint in. And then that way you can use the art journal for your for subsequent effects and collages using those beautiful rice papers and those other fine art papers. But if you're working with the um, watercolor paper, either way, watercolor paper or these papers that already have acrylic or watercolor paint on them. If it has watercolor paint on them, we're going to be working on top of the surface with a water-based adhesive, clear adhesive. And so the all the adhesives that we're using are non-toxic. So they're not solvent-based, they're water-based. That means you can use these techniques with kids. And I'm very excited about that, especially with summertime coming, right? It's a good project to do with kids. First, you can give them some rice paper, which is super cheap, and let them just make marks all over it. And then you can take the paper once it's dry that they've made the marks on with whatever crayons, or um, you can give them markers as long as the markers are indelible, meaning that when you put them in water, they're not going to run, right? Or maybe you want them to run, who knows? um, then the paper will be getting wet using our different adhesives. So, um, yes, I like to use an indelible ink. So, for instance, Sumi ink when I'm doing my Asian work. So this Sumi ink is it's supposed to be permanent when it's dry, and also acrylic inks and India inks. Let me show you some India inks that I happen to have. I happen to have it right here. No, I put it out because I was preparing for this. So this is India ink. Inside here, these are bottles of India ink. And the nice thing about India ink is that when it is dry, it's permanent. Also there, and so this is a genre called India ink, but there's also inks that are made out of acrylic paint. They're just thinned down to be able to use them just like an ink. And so those are also appropriate and good. And those are what I recommend to work on top of. Now you can also use acrylic markers. So these are acrylic markers from Pebeo, and I love working with these on top of my artwork after I've collaged down my papers. Or actually, at any level, at any layer, you can go in with these acrylic markers. They're fantastic. And there are a lot of different acrylic markers on the market. So, have at it with that. All right. So let me show you those adhesives. That's where I was going with this discussion, right? So there are a couple of different types. So this is nori paste. This is a wheat paste. It's actually what I used to adhere this rice paper to this backing paper. And I mean, once it's on there, it is good and on there. And it's non-toxic. It cleans up with soap and water, and it's perfect to use around kids. It is absolutely non-toxic. Now, it doesn't say anything, and it's by Yasutomo. There you go, right there, Yasutomo. I will have a link to it in the description of the video. It's an excellent paste to use with kids. Phenomenal. And it comes in a smaller size, this size, and bigger sizes as well. Because if you get really excited about doing collage, you go through a lot of it. So this is one product that's very inexpensive and terrific for using with families, schools, that kind of thing. Nori paste, okay? And that is not an acrylic product, it's a starch paste. So it's like an organic product. Now, in terms of as an artist and what I use um, in order to have um, excuse me, archival glue, essentially, as it is. And a lot of people use decoupage. So if you have decoupage, use decoupage. Decoupage is a type of craft glue, and it comes in gloss, and it comes in multi-surface, and it comes in a matte finish. As there's sparkle, there's all kinds of decoupage. I don't use decoupage myself because I find in Florida I have used decoupage before, and because it's so humid here in Florida, it didn't get fully dry, and it was a little tacky, and I didn't like that. But that's just me in Florida and high humidity locations. So if you are somewhere where it's drier, knock yourself out. Use the decoupage. It's very inexpensive and available in all the craft stores, right? But when I go to the art supply store for fine arts, then I'm going to be using something like this. So this is by Liquitex, and this is called matte gel. So matte gel. Now gel medium, I'm going to show you. You see that? I can turn it upside down and it doesn't come out. So it is a gel inside there, and it's acrylic medium. It looks white, but that's just because it's wet. When it's dry, it's crystal clear. Now it comes in matte, a matte finish, and it also comes in a gloss finish. So it just depends on what you're doing. Most of the time I use matte, the matte medium, but sometimes I use gloss because if I have a piece of paper that I'm working on a background and you have the metallic shimmer like this, you want to maintain that shimmer, right? You don't want to put matte over top of it, a matte finish. You want to maintain that really cool shimmer of that beautiful paint. So I would use gloss over top of this, a gloss medium. So here is a Pebeo gel acrylic gloss medium. So it says underneath here that it's gloss. And so that is what I would use if I wanted a gloss finish instead of a matte finish. But these two will work exactly the same, the gloss and the matte. They'll both work. They're both acrylic mediums. They both dry clear and they will glue your papers down. And then there's another product that I like to use with thinner papers. So if I'm working with something that is very delicate, maybe it's an old piece of ephemera, or I'm working with um, silky fabric or a tea bag, which is very thin, or these rice papers, which are thin, then my favorite is to use something again by Pebeo called Bindex. So Bindex is a thinner version, but not watery, just thinner version of the gel medium. So the gel medium you saw was really thick, right? And the Bindex is more, I call it more of a hand cream consistency. So it's a little looser than the gel. And it works perfectly with the thinner papers and rice papers and things. Now, this is it in a tube, but then this is how I like it, like this in a big old pot. This is what, 480 milliliters, I think. Is that 475 milliliters? It says right there. So a nice big pot is easy to work with. Easier to work with, I find, than the tube, because with a pot like this and a pot like this, when you are done with, let's say you have some left on your palette, you can pick it up with a palette knife and just put it in back into the tub, and so you don't lose any, right? We want no paint left behind. No, no, no. Okay, so those are the types. And I saw somebody over on YouTube said, where can you buy these things? And so um, I will be putting links in the video. They're not there right now because when I go live from Whatnot, it fires up YouTube, but I don't have access to that ahead of time. So I put the comments in after the workshop, when the workshop and the auction are all done, because after the workshop is an auction. When the workshop is completely done, then, and the auction is done, I go back onto YouTube and I add in the links to all of these products. So if you are patient, you can wait and look at the video tomorrow and you will see all the links to these products in there, so that you'll be able to just click and go find them. Okay. And that way you'll know exactly what it is that we're working with. Um, Now, that was the glue that we used. You can also, there's this really cool thing that I just found, and it is these books by a company called, let's see, where is it? Edition Vault. Okay, Editions Vault. And so this is a book from Editions Vault that they've done research and determined that these images are in the public domain. That means they're royalty free and you can take the images and use them. So this is a book with all different, this is a botanicals book, okay? So they're all different images in here and they're just black, all right, in this book. Now, in this book, the images are color. So you see all these beautiful images. This is actually a book about Ernest Haeckel. And Ernest Haeckel is an artist from the, I believe, the 1800s. Let me see, it'll say here, he was, he published them between 1899 and 1904. It was a German gentleman, art forms in nature. And he created these just incredible graphics where he was studying, obviously under a microscope, all of these different forms in nature and created these absolutely gorgeous. Let me see, here's some turtles. And these are available for you to cut up and use. So the cool thing is with these books, the reason I got so excited about them is see where it says download included. So in the back of the book here, on near the last pages, they give you a website page and a download code. So you can go in once you bought the book, and I'll have links to these two books in the description of the video tomorrow. Once you go into you buy the book and you receive it, then you go into the website and you can download all of these images. So all the images that are in this book, I downloaded to, I have an external drive for my computer. And so that I could select specific images and then print just those images like that. Now you'll notice this one has color. Why? Because I used color pencil. So I have a set of colored pencils here, not watercolor pencils, regular pencils. Because if I did this coloring in watercolor pencil, and then I cut it out and I went to glue it down onto my surface. Well, these mediums have water in them and it would just, the color would go bleh everywhere. Okay. So this way, since I did them with non-watercolor pencils, so like your Prismacolor pencils, these are Derwent pencils. Karen Dosh makes great pencils. Um, then you can take it and cut that out and put it into your artwork using this collage method that I'm going to show you. And it will go right down into your artwork. Now, this one I left with no color because when we go over top of the table, I'm going to take some pencils and I'm going to show you how I colorize those in order to use it. But the ones that come already with the color here are just so fabulous that I printed one page out and then I used it here. And you see where's the swallow or the bird? There's the bird. So there's the bird right there, right? That was cut out from a page that I printed from my download of this one, Art Forms of Nature. And then also, let's see over here, you see this right here, that plant? That was also a cutout from the books. Fabulous reference books, love them, love them. So I thought I'd share those with you because they're my latest obsession, right? How many books do I already have? And yet I find a way to buy more, right? Why is that? I also have tons of paper, by the way. Um, this one that I showed you is just one of about probably 40 or 50 rolls of paper, artist paper that I have. I have some marbled paper. So whenever I do paper marbling, I sell marbled paper, but if there is marbled paper that just doesn't, the whole sheet doesn't stack up to my standards, then I keep the little cutoffs like this and then they become pieces that I can use in my artwork. So let's see, I think this would be a good piece for tonight. And right, red, white, and blue. Happy Memorial Day, right? So there's a piece, I'm going to keep that out. That might be a good piece to use. Or I love this 1970s sort of psychedelic feel with the yellow and the brown. So I'm going to pull that one out as well. But you can see I just keep these. These are bags that I normally will deliver my artwork in. And I just keep these full of various papers because Lord knows I have enough paper. And so that they are ready to go. Here's some more. I showed you this one earlier, which are the ones that we just worked on over the last couple of weeks. But here's another envelope where I have different colors, browns, reds. I'll just do a session and sit here with an indelible ink and I'll just play on the rice paper and create a whole bunch of sheets at one time. And notice they're just like random O's and and the squiggles and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I use when I'm doing my artwork. Actually, let's take this one that's red. I have a couple of sheets of red. So I have just these little marks, which are so fun. And then I have this one that has some writing and characters on it. So we'll keep those out for the effect. And then on Whatnot, we have a wonderful artist community. And um, one of the sellers on Whatnot is that I frequently go to her shows is Salmon's Girl, SALMONS underscore girl. So if you're on Whatnot, I recommend that you follow her. And so I've gotten like this is very old. You see how it's torn and it's very delicate. That's why I'm going to use the Bindex with the delicate paper, right? That I was telling you is why I love the Bindex. So this, I just get stacks of these. Like she says, I can't stand to throw them away. And I said, neither can I. Right. I don't want to throw any of those things away. And old books that are falling apart, right? So what do? I take an old book and I put paint on it, and then I use pieces of the old book in my artwork. And another one of my favorite papers to use in artworks, and so we'll use some tonight, is this is called onion skin. And onion skin is what is used for patterns, dress patterns, suits, that kind of stuff. This was for a poodle skirt, hence the poodle. So I'm going to have to put this poodle on a really big sheet of paper, right? Because I want the poodle to show up. But I might take another piece of this over here. And I love this paper. I use it also with encaustic wax. That's hot wax painting. It just melts right into the wax, but it also just melt right into our surface. So I'm going to tear off a random piece here. And we're going to use that tonight also. But it is called onion skin or pattern paper. And if I'm at my local thrift shop, I'm always looking for things like old patterns, and they'll sell them for 25 or 50 cents, right? And then you get this beautiful paper out of it. Make sure that the onion skin is in there. And then you have gorgeous paper for doing collage. Fabulous. Okay. So what do we have next? I think that's it. I think we are ready to go over top of the table. And let me see, there was somebody said hi over on YouTube. Hello, hello. Welcome in, welcome in. In America, it is Memorial Day. So I want to say happy Memorial Day to my American folks. Now, my father was in the military, he was in the Air Force, but he did not die in the Air Force or perish in the Air Force. And Memorial Day is where we think about and we celebrate those people who have died in the line of protecting our country. And um, my father actually got out of the Air Force and went to work for the US government and had a whole wonderful career with the US government. So, but I do think about him on days like Memorial Day. And let's see, do you post to Scotland in the UK, please? Somebody was asking on YouTube. In terms of my artwork, yes. Although on Whatnot, I don't think on Whatnot that they post internationally from the US. I could be wrong. If you're on Whatnot and you know the answer to that, let me know. Um, but if you are on YouTube and you have an inquiry about that, just message me on YouTube. Go to on if you ever have questions about what it is that we're doing during our workshops, and you're on YouTube, you can just go to the community tab or the post tab, and so when you're looking at YouTube, it'll say videos, it'll say live. There are a couple of different tabs on there. One of the tabs is community. And if you click on community, you'll see my posts. And on my posts, I have um, notices for each one of the upcoming workshops if I know that it's coming. Like Wednesday was a pop up this last week, but for the Sunday workshops, I put a post out there. So if you have questions that aren't answered during this workshop, you can always go in and either ask the question in the comments after the fact on the video, or you can go to the post in the community tab and send me a message there. Okay, so there are ways to get a hold of me. And if you're on Whatnot, of course, we have messaging on Whatnot. So that's fabulous. Let me go ahead and see what I have here to get it in order. Okay, I had this bigger piece right here. Oh, that's a larger, see, more notebooks, right? That's what happens. You're an artist and you just have notebook after notebook after notebook, full of all kinds of goodies, right? So I'm going to put the larger one down. We're going to work on the smaller one tonight, which is a 9 by 12 instead of on the bigger one. And let's go ahead. We're going to go over top of the table and actually get to doing some collage, which I'm so excited about. The first thing that we're going to do is we are going to use some nori and attach it to um, a just a piece of watercolor paper. So this was that watercolor paper that I just showed you. It's the Canson XL watercolor paper. And it has a what they call a cold press surface. So that's a surface with just a little bit of tooth to it, which is fine. It works great. You can either use smooth paper or you can use this cold press paper. Either one will work. And what I'm going to do is next to it, I'm going to put a piece of this palette paper. So let's take the dirty one off of there. There's a clean one. It's helpful. I love palette paper. I use it a lot. If you don't have palette paper, you can use something like wax paper or parchment paper, or I know ladies that even use tin foil. Okay, so where there's a will, there's a way, right? Those are good surfaces that you can use as well. So let me see where we are position wise here. Okay, I want to be sure that you're able to see what I'm doing. Okay, cool. Nice. Now, when I'm doing collage, you can put your collage on with a brush, or you can put your collage on with a palette knife. And a lot of people are not familiar that you can use a palette knife. This is a good one right here. This is a good palette knife for both. Oh, and I forgot to mention palette knives earlier, didn't I? But this is another thing that we're going to be using. And I like to use an offset palette knife. So what that means is it doesn't just go straight out. It has this offset right there. You can see that. And I like that because that way my knuckles don't get in the in the goop all the time if I've got an offset palette knife. Now I'm looking for my favorite one. Okay. So you see how this palette knife has a trowel shape and it's very rounded. My favorite for doing collage is a diamond shape, this kind, because it has a straight edge right here. And so as I'm putting down my collage papers, I've really like this straight edge. And of course, this one has a long straight edge. So either one of these are my favorite. It's not that this one won't work. Okay, this one will work. It's just not my favorite. Okay. So if you only have the other kind on there, then excuse me, then that's fine. Use what you have, right? Okay, hold on. Let me put this other paper down here that we'll get to in a little bit. So you can start with just plain white paper like this, or you can start with having something on the paper. And what you'll find is a lot of artists, you'll be watching them on YouTube, for instance, and you will see that they start uh, their artwork by just scribbling all over it. And actually, I'm going to bring you a little bit closer. Let me see if I can get you a little bit closer. There we go. Um, they'll start by scribbling on it. Oftentimes, you'll see, or they'll write a message on it and then they'll paint on top. And for something like collage, I love to do that. So let's take this. I showed you earlier. This is an acrylic marker from Pebeo. And acrylic markers, you have to shake, 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 shake. So there's some acrylic paint. So just do your favorite kind of marks. Maybe this is a favorite kind of mark. A lot of times I find people have trouble starting, and it's like, what the heck do I do? If you don't know what to do, just start with circles. You can put little triangles, you can do squares, whatever comes to mind. Okay. There's no rhyme or reason. You can write words like peace, serenity. How do you spell serenity? Serenity, I think, right? It doesn't matter because we're going to cover it up. That's the beautiful thing. Okay. This is just, it's called breaking the page or breaking the surface of the page. It's just getting something down. It really doesn't matter what it is. And if I take a wet brush at this point, this is just acrylic paint. Okay. Ooh, you know what I love? I love this fluorescent pink. The fluorescent pink is fabulous. So I'm just, the reason I like to put something on the page or have something on the page before I start my collage is that when I'm using rice paper or this thin onion skin to do collage, then what happens? It it shows through. And I love that. And it doesn't, like I said, it could be totally random. It doesn't have to be anything. I'm not creating a work of art. I'm just creating sort of a something of interest underneath my art. Okay. So no stress. Just have fun with it. It's another way of warming up. Now notice that I'm shaking these because when you use an acrylic marker, almost all acrylic markers have a little ball inside them to help uh, mix up the paint and the water that's in there. Okay, so this one is almost dry, but it makes nice marks like this. So let's just do some marks like this. Ooh, let's have some fun. There we go. See how I'm not worrying about it. I'm just, what? Now, to me, this is creating a background that has the hand of the artist in it because my hand doesn't move like your hand moves. So when I'm doing this technique, I'm putting my own spin on these shapes. You can be more purposeful in what you put on there, but I'm like, okay, let's just get warmed up and put something on there. It is okay to break loose and just have a good time. All right. And not have to be specifically purposeful. So this is, some's dry, some's not dry. Let's just grab some water and a big old brush and just see what happens if we put some water on there. Okay. Yes, some of it's running. Oh, that's awesome. That's what I wanted. I didn't want it to be perfect. I want it, remember this, these markers are acrylic paint, right? So you can hit it with water while it's still wet and it will cause color to explode out of there. Oh my gosh, look at that. It's a miracle. I love it. Let's see what's happening there. Nice. Okay. So now we've just got a little bit of something, something happening on our paper. And I like to do that ahead of time. I don't always do that ahead of time. As a matter of fact, with this one on the large sheet of, no, actually there was stuff on here. Okay, I lied. Um, let me see if I can show you. It was in one of my journals, this big sheet of paper. And I had been doing some practice writing. I don't know if you can see it underneath there. There's an H and a J. I was using my these pens, dip pens, and dipping it into an India ink, which is an indelible ink, and then writing on the background. And so I just had this practice sheet and I thought, oh, that'll be fun to use that. Why? Because there's already writing and marks on the background that give it some history. I love working with paintings that have history or surfaces that have history. So that's what we just did. We just built some history. What I want to do here on the watercolor paper that now has some fun stuff on it. It's okay if it's damp or if it's wet, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and use, for this particular one, I'm going to do the nori paste. So we're going to use the nori paste first so I can show you how to glue down with the nori paste. And then we're going to um, do a different collage on the notebook that already has some paint on it using the Bindex and the other acrylic mediums. Okay, so we're going to start with this perfect paste. And instead of leaving the jar open, notice how they have a lid for the jar like this on the larger jars. Instead of leaving it open like this, I'm going to dispense some of it out on my palette pad here, and that way I have some to work from. Now, you're going to notice here, if you were to look up closely, that here's some of the nori paste that's dry. Eh, there was a little bit that was along the inside edge that was dry. So I'm getting rid of that right now. And I'm also grabbing myself some paper towels because we're going to need paper towels for this process. But remember, this is a starch based organic starch. Okay. So let's just take some of it. It's quite a thick paste too. Actually, hey there, Richard. And there we go. So I put it out here on the palette pad, and now I'm going to cover this back up because I want to be sure that it stays moist in there, right? And I'm going to take a spray bottle of water and I'm going to spray some water on it. So I want to get it to where it flows a little bit better because when it first comes out of the jar, it's quite chunky. So let me bring this over here. You can see it's kind of chunky, very thick. And we want to thin it out a little bit. So I'm just adding a little more water from a spray bottle. And I want to get it to where it flows a little bit better. We don't want it to be chunky underneath our papers. Okay, a little bit more. And instead of doing it on this, you could put it in a little dish of some sort. Okay. I'm trying not to get it in the acrylic because the acrylic will color it, and I don't want it to be colored. I want it to stay. It looks kind of just pasty right now, and it's going to dry clear. So it's almost to the point where I need it. And there, a little bit more water. So it's nice that you can adjust that it comes thick enough that you can adjust the consistency for the papers that you're using, the surfaces you're putting it on. Okay, and it does say on the bottle of the jar not to use it on it, that it won't stick to metal and it won't stick. What else was there? Will not work with vellum. Vellum is a special type of paper, plastic or metal. It won't work on those surfaces. Okay, so now we have a really nice consistency going. It's actually still just a little too heavy. There we go. Now it's a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter. Nice. Okay, that's something I can work with. So when I do collage, I generally will put some of my paste, whether it's the acrylic paste or in this case, it's the starch paste. I will put it directly onto the paper and then lay papers on top of it. So let's get ourselves, let's just take, this is the onion skin. So I'm going to take some onion skin, and this beginning process is totally random, y'all. Completely random. Okay. I don't stress over it. That's one of the wonderful things about that I like about doing collage and creating art is the beginning layers. I just go for it and I put things down and I figure it out later. So this is an old falling apart poetry book. So it's the Viking Book of Poetry, and it was damaged when I got it. So what I do is I take parts out of it and I use them in my artwork. Boop, like that. So that will go on there. I'm kind of assembling the different parts of paper. The nice thing about this nori paste is it stays moist for a long time. So you don't have to worry too much about it drying up really fast. This is an old typewriting book where you used to, I took typewriting in school. That's how old I am. So here's a page right here. And I'm just going to tear a page out of there. And we'll take a part of a page. So I like these keys right here. They're kind of cool looking, right? So on this side, I'll just tear this. You can be a little more purposeful if you want to cut it. That's fine. I like the look of a torn edge myself. But sometimes I cut if I want something in particular. So there's that. And I also like where it's just doing like, see, KI8K, KI8K. So they're just doing some practice there. So let's pull a little bit of that practice out of there. There we are. So I've got that paper. I've got this paper. Cool. And I'm going to put the spare pieces back inside the book so that they'll be ready for my next collage adventure. All right. And then I've got lots and lots of baggies of pieces of paper. So let's see what we have in here. I like this sort of creamy color right there. So you can buy, these are additional scrap packs that I found online, or you can get the variety pack that I create on my website. Okay, let's throw a green one in there. So these are mostly, um, I think it's called Kozo paper. It's mulberry paper. Is in a lot of those packs. And then there's some cool paper from India. And that's what this is right here. This is some Indian paper made in India. India or China? Let's see. 100% recycled paper, post-consumer waste. Isn't that cool? And that's a nice design. I like that design. This one's cool because you can actually cut, you see the circles there? So you can cut circles out of it. That's kind of cool. All right. So we have a start. We have a start now. I will show you that this is what I do in my studio is when I have little bits. Let's say I cut several circles out of this and then I have some paper left over. I have these are just salad containers. So when I get a to-go salad, there is a container left over right? A clear container. And so I just put bits inside here. You see, here's one of the bits from the red roll that I showed you recently. And so here's a map right here. That's kind of cool. Maybe there's something from the map we can pull out of there. And so I just have several of them stacked. When I teach a live workshop, then these various bins can go on the different tables and people have scraps for doing their collage. And actually this scrap paper can just go, let's see, let's put this scrap paper right inside here so that we've got some of those scraps like that. Nice. And they just fit just like that. Awesome. You know what? I really like this one with the plum blossoms on it. So that's another way that I will store my papers right there. And uh, I was watching on Wednesday. Wednesday there was a raid train, an artisan raid train, and during the raid train, they were using um, napkins. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, I've used napkins before, but notice that this kind of goes along with this same vibe. So I'm going to show you how I use a napkin to work with as well. Oops, let me put my books away. So I'm going to try a little bit here to clear my my work area. Oh my goodness, everything's stacking up, right? So I'm going to try to clear my work area. Oh, sorry about that. Let's take one of these out. This is brand new. Look at that. And let's cut this open. So this is a napkin, and napkins usually are 2-ply, 3-ply, or 4-ply. That means that there's a design on the front, but you see how it's white on the inside? And that means that these plies will separate. And so I usually just roll the ends here until I can get it to separate. Yep, it's beginning to separate. Because if you try to collage and you're not collaging with the top, when you collage a napkin, what'll happen is once you've glued it down, this top piece will come up and it'll separate from the bottom piece, and then you'll just be left with this white, and you'll not have, and see how sheer it is? It's beautiful. You can write or draw on here over on your, let's do that. Let's draw something over here. I'm just going to draw like a zigzag, okay, on that. This is the white part of the napkin. Oh, what? Isn't that fun? So let's see. I want to do this. Oh, it's tearing a little bit, of course, because this is wet when I'm working on the napkin, and it's actually going right through the napkin. I can see, but that's okay. That's the fun part of it, right? So there's a zigzag. It did come through to the back side, but that's okay. You see there? We're going to let this dry for a minute, and then we'll be able to put that in. And this part of the napkin will just disappear into nothingness. Now I want to take this, and I actually don't want to leave that there. I want to get rid of that. So because I'm working on top of a palette pad here, if this is still wet, if it's still wet, I can, or even damp there, then I can just pick it up like that with water. Okay. And so I'm going to use one of my paper towels, and I'm going to get that color up so it doesn't get mixed in with anything else that I might be working with. Okay, there we go. Lovely. And there we go. Now I'm actually going to tear this out of here. So now I've got that design on this sheer part of the napkin. Oh yeah, baby. And that'll just disappear when we put the gel on it. In this case, the nori paste. Oh, I've got some nori paste on it. Okay, that's all right. I'm just going to stick it over there. let's see, sometimes there's another ply, so there might actually be 3 plies here. Yep, looks like there might be another ply. Let's see. Yes. Oh my gosh, see, it's a 3 ply. So here's another white one. What? I know, isn't that crazy? Let me see if there are any other questions on YouTube. There we go. So yes, there's another ply even. Isn't that crazy? So there we go. Now we've got the single ply of the tissue right here. And here's another one of the clear of the white, but it has a little bit of the design on it. So we'll just set that aside and I will put these away. Aren't they fun though? If you find a good pack of napkins, grab it. That's what I did here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut part of this off so that I can work with it. I'm just going to cut this like this, one of the squares. Why not? And that will collage on beautifully. There we go. Nice. So it just says love, 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 and it has such a cute design on it. And there's more to use for another project. Oh, I'm only working on a 9 by 12 piece of paper right now, but usually I'll work on a much larger piece of paper so that I can fit more on it. Okay, so we've got a nice selection of papers here. I don't have any yet of my uh, rice paper. So let's just take this piece right here that has some interesting little lines on it. And right, just has some random lines. Even if they were part of words, it doesn't matter. Just tear pieces. And here, this piece of music. So it's from an old music and it was falling apart, old music portfolio. And you can see I stamped on it. So do you see the design that I stamped on there? So I can just take a part of this that has some of that stamping on it. Maybe I will just take this part right here. It's literally falling apart as I tear it. It's falling apart in my hand. But I will use that piece right there. I'm going to put these back aside in my pile. Okay. So let me set aside, I'm just going to set aside my papers right off to the side here. And I'm going to start with some of these pieces. And then I'm going to use the thicker papers first and then build some of the sheer papers on top. Okay, because some of these papers you can see through. So I'm going to put some of the see-through pieces off to the side. And like this map that is so cool, but I don't want to use the whole map, do I? I'm just going to tear a part of it there. Cornwall. So if you're in England, this is a map of Cornwall. All right. See these little pieces that are left? They just go right into my little bin, right? And here we go. So let's go ahead and get the pieces that are more opaque put down, and then we'll put the pieces that are sheer on top. Okay, so I have all of my different papers around me, and let's take some of the nori paste, and we're just going to, you could do this with a brush, you don't have to do it with a palette knife. Okay, so I'm just putting a thin layer here on the paper, and then I'm gonna go all the way across here. You could do the whole paper. Actually, we might do the whole paper. Let's see then. Because what I like to do if I'm covering the whole paper all at one time, then I can just spritz it with some water and it'll be ready to receive my papers. So here we go. This is the nori paste. Okay. Nice. So I've got nori paste over the whole surface here. You see how quick it is to use a palette knife, and a palette knife is super easy to clean because I just take my paper towel, Oh, flower gazer. Yay. Now this whole thing has some sticky to it. And we're going to spray this with a little bit of water to make sure it's nice and moist. And then we're going to start with our pieces that are a little bit more um, opaque. Okay. And I can just use, don't worry if you get the paste on top, that's okay, because the paste is going to dry clear. Okay. So there's that one. Let's put this Cornwall map maybe up here. Remember how I said don't worry about what you're writing or the words or anything because you're likely to cover it up? Yeah, this is why. Now, I'm taking some of this nori paste and I'm putting it over top of this piece because I want this to overlap a little bit. Okay, so I like my papers to overlap. And I'm putting this one down and leaving some of the other color from the markings over the edge. It's okay if you put nori paste on top of these. And actually, that's what I like to do. You don't have to, but I like to put nori paste on them while I'm in the on the tops as well, while I'm in the process of building layers. Okay. And I can see, guess what? I'm going to need some more nori paste. No surprise there, because that's what happens when I'm in the throes of creating. I always need more paste than I think I do. So, flower gazer, I was showing earlier that this nori paste is super thick. So I'm putting it onto my palette and I'm going to spray it with a bunch of water. And then I'm going to mix the water in until I get the consistency of the paste that I want. Because when you're working with thinner papers like the rice papers and some of these others, um, you don't want it to be lumpy. You want it to be smooth. But it's nice that the nori paste comes with different, like a thick paste, because then you can easily just add water and thin it out to the consistency that you want. Okay, here we go. So we're just working it with it helps to have a palette knife. I use the palette knife whenever I'm doing color mixing anyway, except for watercolors, right? I just use my brush to do the color mixing in with watercolors. But if you're using any sort of pastes or gels or glues like this, then it comes in handy to have that. Okay, let's see. Here is that poem that I had. So I'm going to take some more of the paste. Where do I want to put the poem? I don't want to cover up the Cornwall too much. So maybe I will put a bunch of it here. So I'm just loading that up. And let's put this here. Maybe, oh, you know what? I'm going to take this bottom part off. That's unnecessary, right? So I'm just going to take this part right here. There we go. So there's nori paste underneath, and I'm putting some nori paste on top. That way, when I put more items over top of this, it will, they will adhere. Hey there. What, that one, Gridiff, it looks like, something like that on Whatnot. Welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for joining me on a Memorial Day for my art show. The show must go on, right? Okay. This piece of paper I just put down was one of the exercises from the book about typing that this one came from right here. Okay, let's do some of this green, the green. So I like the way this has little circles in it. So I'm actually going to cut a couple of circles out of there. This one has not quite a complete circle, but that's okay because I'll show you what I do with the ones that are not a complete circle. Doop, like that. This is a pretty thick paper. So I'm going to put some on the back here of the nori paste. And that I put where the straight side is like an edge right there. Okay. So that's what I do with those. And yes, I'm covering the front as well as the back. Nice. I love the way the nori paste sticks down the this paper. It's awesome. Okay, that was one. Let's do this big one right here. This is called, when you do cutting like this to shape, it's called fussy cutting, Fussy. And I actually have a pair of fussy cutting scissors, which are not big and clunky like this one. They're small scissors that make it easier for you to cut small shapes like this. But let's go ahead and put some on the back of here. Remember this paste comes off with water, so it's super easy to get it off of your hands. You just use water and a little soap. Okay, that one's fun too. Let's put that one down here. No, it's too in line with this one. Let's go over here. Blech. Let's put that one right there. There we go. Lovely. Okay, there's that one. I like it. Fabulous. Now let's start looking at putting down some of the sheer paper. So this is the napkin. I'm going to tear part of this off because we don't need this edge. We just want the design. This was the additional plies of the napkin, right? So we've got the napkin here, the front of the napkin, single, the one ply, but it was a 3-ply napkin. And so I'm using one of the plies here to put down a very, it's going to almost melt into the surface. So let's make sure we have plenty of paste here for it to melt into. And we're just going to layer it. I think I'll layer it right there like that. So you see how this just shows right through it? It's awesome. It's awesome. So there we go. And you see how that napkin just melted right into the surface? It's awesome. And it's going to dry, and then you'll see these lines over top, and it's part of the collage. Fabulous. Oops, some of it's coming up because I was being a little rough with it. So let's put that back down there. Okay. And then we've got, this is some of the rice paper. Actually, I'm going to tear it into a smaller piece. So this is what I wanted to show you, was how fun and easy it is to put your rice paper into here. Let's put the rice paper down here. And the rice paper will, um, it's like sort of semi-translucent. So I like that you can see what's behind it. This is that cheap rice paper. You can see what's behind it, but it does cover just a little bit, just a little. Like I can still see the keyboard keys underneath here, but it gives it just a tiny bit of a shade. Okay, now I've got this beautiful love napkin. Am I gonna put like the whole thing right here? Ooh, it's trying to stick. Yeah, I'm just gonna put the whole thing right there. Why not? Why not? Just for giggles. There we go. So it's gonna become very sheer. And let's see what it looks like. Let's see what it looks like. Yee. Now I am gonna have to put a whole bunch more. Now it's got little wrinkles in it, but you know what? I don't mind that. I do not mind that at all. I like my surface to be a little bit textured. And so that's what that does when you get little wrinkles in there. So isn't that fun? You're beginning to build some complexity in there because I can see through those to what's underneath it. And that's what I call oh, thank you so much. It looks like Jennifer came in on Whatnot from a shared link. So thank you, Joshua, for sharing the link. I appreciate it over on Whatnot. Um, okay, so that was the napkin over top of it. Let's take some of this This is the onion skin from a fashion, what is it? Fashion pattern. So let's take this. Again, it's kind of going to melt, but what do we have to do here? We have to put out a little bit more of the paste. So here we go. I prefer to use the paste in smaller bits and then just pull out more when I need it because that way I don't waste any, right? So what did I just do? I just sprayed it with water. So this is, I'm working on a palette paper over here. So I put out the nori paste, which is a starch paste, and I just sprayed it with water in order to, because it comes out very thick. At least mine does because I've had that jar for 2 months or so. So I'm going to add just a little bit more water because it's not quite thin enough for me. There we go. So now that's what's nice is you can adjust the consistency just by adding a little bit of water to it. Phew, nice. I think that's what we need. So I've got some, you can use a brush, but when I'm mixing it like this to get it to be more, a little more malleable to thin it, then I like to use a palette knife to thin it with. But at this point, I could pick it up with a brush and then put it on here. You don't have to use a palette knife to apply it, but I'm gonna, let's see where I want to put this. So I'm just laying the paste on there and let's maybe just a little bit further down, a little further down. Bearing in mind, we're going to be able to see through it because it's pattern paper, it's onion skin. So you're going to see the words, but you're going to be able to see through it, which I think is so fun. And then I like this one because you see the little arrow on there. Let's see, do you just place any pattern you like? Unique love garden. Yes. Yes. Now, that was an excellent question, though. I appreciate you asking it because I'm going to give you a little bit of a sort of a feel for where my head is when I'm designing a collage. Okay. Because I think that could be helpful. Uh, and I'm using the rule of thirds as I'm putting this on. So let me show you that. What is the rule of thirds? The rule of thirds is where you break up in your mind. This is what I do. Now, when you're starting out, you can literally draw the lines on the paper, but I break the paper up 1/3 this way, and then 1/3 this way. So this way, and I'm doing it in my mind. So the points where those thirds intersect, so that would be here, 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 and here, right? Where those lines intersect are the points at which you want to put your most interest. So for instance, this map of Cornwall, where I had a little piece of map that I put in there, it is placed at one of those junctions. So that could be or could become the focal point. So when I create a composition, I'm normally looking at creating a focal point and then a secondary point across from it. So if this is my focal point, my secondary point of interest is going to be over here across from it. If I'm putting my focal point here, my secondary focal point is going to be over here across from it. And the same is true down here. If my focal point's in the bottom here, then my secondary focal point is going to be up here. Okay. Now I may have multiple focal points. Um, I might put something of interest in every one of those points. Now, here I have a heart from the napkin. Here I have there's several things going on. So that has some interest to it. There's the map of Cornwall here. And then in this corner, I have some poems, poetry. Wow, very interesting. Thank you, Unique Love Garden. So yes, it's random, but at the same time, it's not random. And I've done workshops before live where I have a whole bunch of students in the class, and oftentimes I'll have somebody come up to me and go, mine just looks like a hot mess. Why does yours in just a few layers look, cool? And I said, well, I'm working off the rule of thirds, and it's natural. It's what I do because I've done it for 20 years. Okay. I was fortunate enough to learn that concept early, and so by learning that concept early, it's just natural and I apply it to my artwork. So it's not just a hodgepodge hot mess. It's actually as I'm working and designing, I'm leading myself into a piece that has a focal point and then a secondary focal point. Okay, so thank you so much for your question. I do appreciate it, and that's what I'm doing here. Okay. And we're using nori paste, which is a starch paste from Japan. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's by Yasutomo. And uh, if you go to my YouTube video tomorrow um, for this workshop, there will be a link to the nori paste where you can find it. And it comes in many different sizes, these tubs. But this is great to use with kids because it's non-toxic. It washes up with water. It comes off of hands and clothing easily, right? So um, that makes it terrific to use with kids. And if you have a couple of pretty napkins and some other miscellaneous pieces of paper, I mean, you got the kids busy for a while. I had three daughters. They're all grown now, but yeah, I know these things from years of doing art projects with them. Now, here is a piece of the green paper, and it's translucent, but it's not transparent. So I want to use this sort of sparingly, but let me see, maybe down here, I can put it in this corner. If I like to use these kind of papers like this to quiet an area. So if there's too much going on in an area, I might tear a little piece and then let's say I want this side of the artwork to speak to that side of the artwork. Then I may take that corner and just stick it right up in there. There we go. So now I've got one of the things you want to do when you're creating a collage is you want the viewer's mind and eyes to travel around the page. Okay. It might start at the focal point, but you want it to travel around the page. So you see, I have a green element and another green element and another green element and an element with some green here. And so that will help somebody's eye sort of move around the page. Okay. Here is some gorgeous music with some green and red on it. Where do I want to put that? I'm not laying it down because it's super delicate. It's an old piece of ephemera. It's just going to fall apart on me. And I want to be sure that I place it where I want it. But it doesn't look like, hmm. Okay, I'm going to pull this apart because it was just about to fall apart anyway. And I'm going to put this little piece up here. So you just want to make sure that you've got plenty of the paste on there before you set your paper down. Say if the paper is already tearing because it's super delicate, old ephemera. And since I have some up there, I might want to put some down here, but I really like this heart, so I don't particularly want to completely cover up the heart. So why don't I take just a little bit here, and I'm going to put it right here. I like to overlap just a little bit my various layers. Now, this paper from an old, it's probably over 100 years old piece of music If I try to put the paste on the back, it's literally going to fall apart. Oh, look, Acid Monk said I bought some nori while I was in Japland. Japan works great, right? I know it works awesome. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to sort of go over top of the heart a little bit. I'm going to overlap that heart and I'm going to overlap this heart, but I want to try to have it be in the right, like upright before I push it down. There we go. So I like things to overlap, overlap, overlap. Speaking of overlapping, let's see, I want to do another one of these circles. Isn't this fun? These papers are normally made in India. This one is by a company from China. So I'm not sure if this paper was made in India and just packaged in China, or if it was actually made in China. I don't know. Doesn't say on the package. But I was showing earlier, if I cut something like this feels therapeutic and calming, Unique Love Garden said. Yes, it's so true, because you know what? You're just having fun. You're letting inspiration flow. You're not taking yourself too seriously. All the good things, right? And you get to play with beautiful paper, even paper that I made. Like this was ink on rice paper that I made, marks. Now, the nice thing here is you can audition, right? So, do I want to put that one there, or do I want to put it like down here? My initial thought was I want it down here. So, I'm going to put it where my initial thought was. So, let's just put it right down here. Yeet. See, it was on the edge of the paper, so it has a straight edge. So I just apply the straight edge right there. It's natural, right? It's not going to look out of place. Okay, cool. There we go. There's that one. And it's coming together, right? It's coming together. All right, I want to do a little bit more of the rice paper. So I have this just, okay. So as we said, when you said therapeutic, I was sitting in front of a piece of rice paper and I had a brush and a little bit of ink, and all I did was make dots. So that's very therapeutic. You don't have to know where it's going. You don't have to know, when you're going to use it. You just make dots and be happy. And then this is the perfect opportunity to use my dots. Again, it's on rice paper, the cheapest rice paper you can get, because then it just melts right into the surface, right? So let's see how I want to use this here. I'm thinking maybe something like that. Maybe not. Maybe something like that. I'm happier with it there. Okay, let's put it down here. And so I'm just, remember, it's going to be translucent. So we are going to be able to see. And I'm overlapping that circle just a little bit because I like to overlap my pieces. Oh my goodness, that's fun. Let's get it a little wetter with the paste there. The more wet you get it, the more it sort of melts into the background. Okay, cute, fun. Now, I've got what appears to be a conundrum here because I have a point right there where this, and this are all converging on that point, and that is not good. So I've got to come up with a way to, without covering up this map. I don't want to cover up the map, but I do want to um, create some sort of sweeping motion here. Um, so let's look at, let me see where they are. Let me see where they are. I have some imagery that was from um, this book that I showed earlier. So let me put my coffee out of the way. This book that I showed earlier, Art Forms in Nature, has all kinds of beautiful um, images that are in the public domain. So I've printed some of those already. And I just have to figure out where I know where I put them, but I just have to find the bag that I put them in. Here they are. Okay. So I have this bag, which had the black and white that we were using last week. And then on the back, I printed some of those. When you buy that book, and I will put a link to the book, okay? I'll put a link to that book I just showed you and this book right here. These are both by Editions Vault. And this is copyright free in the public domain art that you can use. And so this book, Art Forms in Nature, has these just stunning. This is from an artist from the turn of the like 19 around 1900. He was doing these illustrations. And when you purchase the book, they give you a code in the back in order to download the files. So I downloaded these files and I downloaded these files, and now they are I have printed some so that we can take something from here and put it in there. Oh, those are cute. Okay. I really liked these little starfish. Aren't they kind of fun? So these are some of these he would be observing in nature, and others he would look at under a microscope. So you see these like really unusual shapes. They're from a particular genus of various real life nature things. And so let's take this starfish, which I think is just super cool. Which one? Which one? The one on the right, the one on the left, the right, left, right, left. I'll hold it up closer for you. The one on the right or the one on the left? What do you guys think? What do you think? What do you think? Tell me. Right. Yeah, I was thinking the one on the right too. Thank you. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to fussy cut it, which means to cut it close to the edge like this. So I love reference books like that, where like the Dover books. Are you all familiar with the Dover books? They also have copyright free imagery, and they'll either give you a disc with it, or like this book was produced this year or last year, I think 2023, from Editions Vault. And so they give you just a link and a code, which is awesome. And I just downloaded it to my computer, and I put it on a hard drive that I have. Nice, right? Now, if I wanted to get even closer, some people like to cut even closer. Then I'm looking for my fussy cut scissors. I think these are them. Yes. So you see this beautiful small pair of scissors. So these are called fussy cut scissors. And so they're what you use to really get in there. They cut extremely well, and they have a small end to them. And that way you can fussy cut really well if you don't want a lot of excess paper around the edge there. But this is called fussy cutting. It's the same thing when you cut fabric, when you're making quilts. You do fussy cutting for that. You cut the fabric. Of course, you would have a pair of scissors that would only be for cutting fabric, right? We know uh, we don't take our fabric scissors and cut paper, right? I don't know if you knew that. It's a thing. Okay. That is so beautiful. So if I take that and I kind of put it in here, what I don't want to do is I don't want to cover up this city. So if I kind of put it right here, yeah, then it's right in the center, isn't it? Okay, then it's annoying me. Okay, so we're gonna put something else underneath it, and then we're gonna put this on, because I'm not liking it being smack dab in the middle here. That's not good. So we'll put something else right there, and then we'll put it right over here. So let's see. This is another um, really cool green and gold design that kind of matches with the other one. So let's see if I take that and I sort of put that in there. And then if I take this and I put this there, that'll work. And then that keeps the focus up in this area of the painting, which I feel is right now my focus, my center point for the artwork. Okay, so I'm putting some more of the nori paste on there. And I'm just gonna lay that one in there. See how it's okay to cover up those red dots? It's like, man, but you put down paper and then you cover it up. Yeah, but you know what? I've watched an artist once on a video over the course of 3 days. He worked on a painting. It was acrylic. He worked on a painting and then he would work right over top of what he had already worked on. And I'm like, what are you doing? That was perfect. But he would just keep working. So it's okay to cover up what you've already put down. Some of it's still peeking through, and that's the point. Some of it is still peeking through. Okay, let's take this. And what I want is I want part of this to overlap part of this and part of this and part of this. So we're doing lots of overlapping here. Oh, that means I want to be sure I have plenty of nori paste right there. Okay, cool. Nice. All right, that adds to it. Lovely. Now, right now, this just looks like it's sitting by itself on the top there. It's not integrated. So I'm going to have to put something over top of it, a portion of it to integrate it. And that's where, again, I want to look to my papers that are transparent slash translucent, right? So I've got some more of this. Oh, I like these lines right here. This is the pattern paper, fashion pattern paper. Let's do this. And that's kind of a cool. Now, again, I can't put this paste on the back. I have to put the paste on here. Let's see how I want it. Do I want it to go up like that, maybe? Maybe I want it to go up like that. Okay, that looks okay. Oh, I'm almost out of paste. No. Okay, so we're just pulling out some more of the paste and spraying it with water. And sometimes I think I'm done, and then I look at an image the next day and I go, oh my gosh, it needs a little more of this and a little more of that. So it's okay to sleep on it. And then the nice thing is you can come back with more paper the next day and just keep building on it. Even if you go on top of this with some acrylic, like the acrylic markers or something, when it's dry, you can still go right over top of that. Okay, so let's put a little bit more paste here and put some. So I want this to go over top of the edge of that, right? There we go. Whew. Now we're really getting some layers going, aren't we? So we've got 3 or 4 layers now. So what happens is this paper, when it's dry, you'll be able to see it's overlapping the edge of this. And so that helps to anchor that image to the paper. But I also want to put something up here, over here. So let me see what else I have that might look good over there. And it could be a little bit more of this. So what if yeah, that's what I want to do. So I want to do about that much there. Again, this is onion skin. It comes from Patterns. So when I'm at the thrift store, I look for patterns, and the ones that I'm not going to sell because they're super cool, then I go ahead and I use them in my artwork. There we go. So now we've got more overlap over here. We've got overlap here and overlap here. What that does is it starts to anchor that image onto the page. Now I can also go onto that with other things. When it's dry, I can use the acrylic markers like this, or I can use gel pens like this, and I can work right over top of it and integrate things into the artwork that, excuse me, that way. Now I want to integrate this with this side right here a little bit. So here's some of that mulberry paper from one of those scrap packs. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear it like this so that I've got, and I'm going to tear this edge right here so that it's okay if I have a straight edge here because it's going to go out to the edge. But I want, yee, oh, maybe I'll do it down this way. So I'm going to put the straight edge out here. And what am I doing? I'm touching the edge of this and I'm covering up um, some of that poem, right? Because I felt like that part of the poem was sticking out too much and I needed to integrate it. Now, maybe do I need to integrate some of this right here? Because I have some red here. And maybe I want to integrate a little bit of red in there. I don't know. Let's just tear a small piece. Whenever I used to tell my students, if you have to ask me, the answer is yes. When it comes to experimenting with art, okay? The answer is yes. So as you're thinking and you're like, oh, should I do this? The answer is yes. Okay, so let's do this right here. And I am going to just put it right there. There we go. That makes me happier to have some red up in there. Okay, so I would let this dry and then I would come back with my markers and draw on it uh, and do some 3D work on it. But I'm going to go now to where we're going to work on a piece with, instead of using the nori paste, which is starch and is perfect for using with kids, and it cleans up super easily. It's a fabulous paste. Love it. But when it comes to doing fine art, and you can do fine art with this nori paste too, don't get me wrong. But if I want to do a painting that is more acrylic based, then I'm going to use acrylic mediums. So let's do that now. And this one, we started with a sheet that was blank. We did some scribbling on it with a marker and then a couple of different colors of marker. That's the pink and burgundy that's showing up in the background. And then I used a little bit of water on it. So you see my water's kind of pink to slosh that paint, the acrylic around. And then we built on top of that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to, I'm going to set this aside so that will dry. Um, then and like I said, you can come back to it and come back to it and come back to it and keep layering. So it's not something that you have to finish all in one setting. So this I showed earlier is one of my journals. So it has, see, all kinds of different fun things going on. There's a piece that I would consider that one done. But there are also pieces like this where it's part way and I've used leftover paint on it. And I've also done just a tiny bit of collage. We're not going to work on that one. Let's work on this one where if you have a journal and you write in your journal, there's some writing on here. Okay. And then it was like, okay, I have this leftover acrylic paint from a project I'm working on. And then I just slathered the leftover paint. So this is several sessions of leftover paint. And that gives us a surface to start on. Can I use nori paste on top of it? Absolutely, I can. The thing is, though, that if you're going to put nori paste on here, I recommend that the surface has a matte finish to it. So you can see right now that it's mostly matte. There's a little bit of shininess because acrylic paints have different finishes to them. Some of them are matte and some of them are satin and some of them are shiny or gloss. And that plays a role in what the surface is going to be like. If you have a shiny surface, if the surface is shiny all over, then I recommend that you put something on it called a matte medium. Let me see, where did I put my matte? Matte medium, which of course I have tons of it, but it's just not right next to me. Let me see. Let me see. Do I have some on the table here? No. But if you hold on just a second, hopefully my chair will hopefully my chair will be good. It won't knock over for me. Okay. Here's one right here. And see where it says acrylic matte medium. This is a very inexpensive one from Sargent Art. And this will dry with a matte finish. So if this was a glossy page and I wanted to make it matte, all I have to do is take this acrylic matte medium and put a layer over top of this acrylic paint and wait for it to dry, and then I will have a matte surface to work on. So that's if you want to use the nori paste over top of an acrylic background, okay? Because if you're putting nori paste directly onto paper, you're okay because paper is absorbent, right? Meaning that the paper has some tooth to it. It's going to grab onto the nori paste. But if you don't have um, if you have paper that's sealed, because acrylic paint will seal your paper, you need to be sure that you have a grippy surface, a toothy surface to work on. And that's why you want to use the matte medium on top of an acrylic painting, or make sure that you have a surface that is matte. Now, what I'm doing here is I had mixed some water in with this nori paste, and I'm putting it back in the pot. Remember how I said I like to get it from a pot better than a tube if you were here earlier? That's because that way I can just put it right back in the pot, whatever I don't use. It's awesome. And so we're going to use a pot of, we're going to use two different pots of medium here for the acrylic. So this is Pebio's Bindex. Bindex is a sort of a hand cream consistency acrylic medium. Oh, thanks over on YouTube. I just noticed there were a bunch of likes. So I appreciate that. If you're on YouTube and if you wouldn't mind, please give the video a like. That would be awesome. Y'all are awesome. Thank you. So this Bindex is a little thinner in consistency than your typical, like this is gel medium. So it says matte gel. So the gel is super thick and it won't come. See that? So it depends. Different companies make it with different thicknesses and consistency. But the Bindex is more like a hand cream consistency. And so, can you see it flowing in there? Yeah, I can't turn this upside down, but it's more like a hand cream and in its consistency. And so I like to use the Bindex for my thinner papers like that onion skin, these thin mulberry papers, my rice papers. And then if I'm doing thicker paper like this here, the map, and this thicker paper, you can use Bindex, but I find it works better if you use a little bit thicker gel. So this is gel and this is Bindex. They're both acrylic mediums. Now, I also have, this is a matte gel. See, I put it on the top there. This is Pebio's gloss gel. So see where it says gloss gel? If you're working with anything metallic, like you see how this has a metallic finish to it, then you want to use a gloss gel over top of that, not a matte gel, because if you put a matte gel over top of this metallic effect, it'll completely eliminate the shimmer of the metal. So that's why I always have like my matte and my gloss um, when I'm working on things so that I can use the gloss on top of the metallic items. So that wasn't a consideration with the nori paste. I'm not sure when the nori paste dries if it's going to be matte or if it's just going to be transparent and it doesn't matter. I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and grab some papers. I'm not going to do the green on, I'm not going to do these on this one. Let's see. So where the purpose of this is so that we can use up some of our papers that we did marks on. the rice papers over the last couple of weeks. We were doing a lot of rice paper paintings, Asian style paintings. And so I want to take some of these papers, and I don't throw away the pieces that I use for exercises. I save them. And then let's take this part right here, like that. I save them and then I use them in my collages. So there were some cool trees in here. This one's actually kind of cool right here. Well, I really like this tree right here and this tree right here. Let's take this tree out of here and tear that one out. So this is the cheap rice paper. That's what you want. You want the cheapo rice paper to the soft, the thinnest, so that it'll melt a little bit better into your background. Ah, isn't that tree cool? Love that tree. That was an exercise from one of the books that we, the landscape series that we were doing. Okay, let's do that. So now I've got a tree. I have some of the Chinese characters. I have some mark making. I have some red mark making. Okay, so we're getting there, right? Is there anything else exciting in here? Yeah, there are rocks, but I think we'll just go with that. Ooh, this one where we were doing trees like this. I like these little marks right here. Right? Just little marks. There we go. Beep. Okay. So see, I save these and I just tear them up. It's fabulous. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So let's take those. And I've also got, um, woo, okay. I also put off to the side here earlier some of this music, some marks I made with red on the rice paper. This is some rice paper with some marbling on it. This is rice paper. No, this is you see the little lines in there? That's the mulberry paper that I did some marbling on. This was from the Joss paper pack. I have those available on Whatnot in the buy now. If you type in the word um, supplies, you'll find it. Now, this is the time where I tell you about this colorizing some images. So I showed you these a few minutes ago from the Vault editions. And I also kind of flashed in front of you this book that I bought at the same time this past week. And this is botanical art. And this is copyright free, or they say that they have researched the copyright and they're not responsible if it's not copyright free, but they're pretty sure it is. But here you go. This is like black and white, right? Beautiful line art. And what I like to do is I like to print the line art. Now, I mentioned on the other book, but also on this book, in the back of it is a code and a website, and you can download all of these individual images. So then I can just select the images that I want, tell it the size I want to print it, and bada bing, bada boom. There it is, right there. And so I wanted to show you what I do to colorize it. So I start with the black and white and then I colorize it and then I can cut this out and that will be perfect on this background, kind of the same color story right there, right? As a matter of fact, nope, I'll wait to cut it out because I want to have the paper stable for while I color it. So let's talk about colorizing your images. This is just printer paper, nothing fancy. Okay, which means that it does not take very much in the way of layers of your color pencil. When you're drawing and you're using drawing paper, paper that's made specifically for artists and for drawing, it'll take multiple layers of uh, colored pencil. But if you're working on this printer paper, this just went through my inkjet printer. Oh my gosh, it hardly takes any layers. So just bear that in mind. And usually when I'm working on something like this, like the flower here, this chrysanthemum has 3 colors. So I use the lightest color, a middle tone, and then the darkest color. And that will give your imagery dimension. Okay, same on the leaf. There are three colors on that leaf. You've got a light color, a medium color, and then the darkest color I put toward the middle. Okay, that's how you're going to build dimension and depth. So let's say for this rose, I just want to show you an example of how that works. So let's see what color. When I had my wedding, I had purple roses for my wedding. So let's see, what color is this? Royal purple. And then this one is Loganberry. That's kind of a reddish purple. Here's a light purple right there, right? Bright lilac. So that's a light one. So let me show you here. Here's the lightest one. And I'll bring it up closer for you in just a second. This is the middle tone, and this is the darkest one. Well, this is kind of a reddish. That one's a little more red. Let me see if I have another one in here that's more purpley. So I separate these by color groupings. So this is my like browns and yellows and peaches. This is the greens and blues, and this is my oranges and purples over here. So let's see, there's this one. It's kind of interesting. Deep fuchsia. Let's see what that looks like. That's almost a pinky, pinky, pinky. Okay. So I think I'll stick with the ones that I first picked out there. And actually, I might use sort of a pink. See the pink there? This is a blush pink. I might. No, that doesn't go with it at all. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm going to stick with the ones I have here. So when I buy pencils, I try to buy them so that I'm going to be able to have in any color family a mid-tone, a dark, and a light. Okay, so if I'm buying pink, I want a mid-tone pink, I want a light pink, and I want a dark pink. Because that way I can, when I'm doing my coloring and layering, I can create dimension like I did with this flower right here. So let's do the lightest one first. That's this bright lilac. And there's not a lot of tooth in here, so I'm not going to be able to get much in the way of layering going on. But I will just start here. So the areas that would be the lightest, I just lay in some color right here. And I might, sometimes I use circles. And in this case, I'm like, oh, you know what? It'd probably be a better idea if I go in the direction that the petal is sort of growing, right? So I'm putting this first layer here. And you can come back and what's called burnish that layer, meaning use another color right over top of that layer. But it doesn't work so well on the printer paper like it does on sketch paper because the printer paper is, it doesn't have that much tooth. So you won't be able to get very many layers on them. Sometimes it's even hard to get a second layer on. So I'm actually, I'm only using about a 2 in terms of my pressure. When I'm doing a drawing where I'm doing the drawing from scratch, I use a super light, like super, super light. So super light like that when I'm working on drawing paper. But this paper, you need to go a little bit heavier if you want to see it. So that was a 1. This is a 2. Can you see how there's a lot more being deposited there? And here are those colors. So I'm going to stick with 1, 2, 3 right now. Okay. So I'm just doing, I'm not going to do the whole flower. Don't worry. I'm not going to put you through that. I'm just going to show you the basics. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to come in with the next one, which was the royal purple. So here's now I'm overlapping just a little bit because naturally as the petal goes in, the petal is going to be darker in this area. So again, I'm doing, in this case, I'm using about a 2 pressure, 2 to 3. and I am going in the direction that the petal is growing. Okay, there we go. Now you can bring it up, just you get some variation in there. You can bring a little bit of it up higher if you want to. There we go. So we're beginning to build dimension. Now there's something called a blender. I love blenders. So this is called the Splendor by Lyra. And here you go. It says Rembrandt Splendor. So that's specifically made. Oops, let me make sure that there isn't another color on there. I'm turning it around. I have grays on it because that's what I was using the last time with it, was gray. So if I want to make sure that it's fresh, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and sharpen that end. And that way it'll take off any other color that was there and it's fresh. Fresh, 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 fresh. Yes, no color coming off. So this, with this Splendor, I can go in here and I can blend those. Plus it blends it into the surface and then it sort of deepens the color a little bit. So let me do half of it and then I'll bring it up for you so you can see. So this is the blended area and this is the non-blended area. So you can kind of see that this gets to be a little bit deeper and a little more concentrated than the area where there's no blender. But let me do the darkest one right now, Loganberry. So I'm putting the Loganberry all the way down in here in the areas that would be black. Now I could also use a gray or a black as well in this deep, deep area, but there's already black there. So I kind of want to just go over top of the areas where the black is and put like sort of a darker color in there. And bring it up just a little bit. So now I've got, so now you're beginning to create some depth in the petal because you've got 3 colors in there. Now, I'm also going to use some white. So the pencils I'm using are the Derwent Color Soft. That happens to be a set that I already had a bunch of them because they work well to do image transfers on polymer clay because they're soft. But Derwent and other companies have many different kinds of pencils. Just if you're going to create an image and then collage it down onto your surface with a water-based medium like these acrylic mediums or the nori paste, you want to be sure you're not using a watercolor pencil. So what does a watercolor pencil look like? A watercolor pencil will say something like aquarelle something on it. So that says aquarelle. This is by Cretacolor. And then it'll also have a little paintbrush on it. So that way you know this is a watercolor pencil. And if you hit this with a wet medium, it's gonna go everywhere. All right, let me see if there's another brand here. This is a Derwent, but this is a type that is water soluble. So there's a little brush on it right there. This is a Faber-Castell. All right, different pencil, but there's a little brush right there. So that tells you that these are water soluble. We don't want a water soluble pencil right now. We want a pencil that is not water soluble. And there are a gajillion different brands. Here's another Derwent. It's called Lightfast, that red one right there. Let's see, here's another company here. This is the Faber-Castell Polychromos. These do not have a little brush on them on the barrel. That means they are not water soluble. That's what you want when you're doing imagery that you want to collage, okay? So with this white, I can come in here at the ends where I want it to be a little bit brighter. And basically what I'm doing is instead of using the blender, the Splendor to blend it together, I'm blending those ends, that lilac, with a little bit of white. And that makes the lilac the lightest at the tips here. Okay. There you go. So that'll give me the lightest at the tip. And then let's bring it down just a little bit while blending it at the same time. So oftentimes I do blending with the Splendor or I do it with whites. That's how I get my blends in. And so now what you got is a leaf that has an interesting dimension because you've got the lightest out here, and then you start getting a little bit darker, and then you have your darkest down underneath there. And then visually, when you look at it, it will give you the impression that it's got some 3D effect to it. Okay, so that is what I did. I used the three colors when I was, oh my gosh, let me tell you, with all these little petals right here, my hands were cramped up. It was not easy to do the big flower like that with all those little petals. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm putting the pencils away. We're done with those, and we are going to cut this out, and that is going to become one of our papers that we're going to collage onto this collage. There we go. And the flower here is called a chrysanthemum. We those grew a lot in Asia, where I grew up in Taiwan and Korea, and we visited Japan. We'd always go to Tokyo, Honolulu, Los Angeles, whenever we would, my family would travel overseas. While my dad was working for the U.S. government. Okay, here we go. We don't want too much white, so that's where the fussy cutting scissors come in, right? So the fussy cutting lets you get a little bit closer. You can get as close or not close as you want. I'm not going to worry about it too much because this will just be another layer, right? But I can kind of have some fun here with the layers of the petals, right? And get a little wave going along there. Let's do this one here. I hope that my American friends are having a good Memorial Day weekend. Did you do any art shopping for Memorial Day weekend? I know I did. I got my deals already. There we go. So this is fussy cutting, going in with a detail pair of scissors and getting a little closer to the edges here. Yee. So that we've got a little more like like that along the edges there, right? I've got a little wave going, but it helps a lot if you have your small detail scissors for that, and not the big honkin' scissors like I had earlier. Here we go. Nice. Almost done. Almost done. A little bit more there. A little bit more here. So do I want to do it inside here? I think I do. I think I do. I think I want to come a little bit more, like get a little bit more going here. I just want to be careful that I don't cut into the stem. There we go. That's close enough. Like that, because I don't want to have too much white here because I want to be able to see what's behind there, right? Let's get a little bit more here around the leaf and sort of cut it as kind of a triangle right there. There we go. Doot. Almost there, almost there. Now for here, one of the reasons you want one of these detail scissors is it has nice pointy ends to it here. So I can just put that pointy end right through and then start cutting right here and get that detail in there. Okay, almost done, almost done. But I like the idea of having that as sort of a triangle there in the center, open. Nice. Okay, cool. That's going to be fun when we put that onto the collage. Okay, here we go. A little bit more there. Okay, lovely, lovely. Oh, I'm so excited to put this in. You see how that's going to look? It's going to look amazing. Amazing. Okay. And there, I'm just going to put that aside. I will work on that later. That'll become a piece to go in another collage at some point. Okay. I'm going to clean up my bitty bits because otherwise they're going to get in and among all my other stuff. Okay. So let's go ahead and build. I'm going to put my fussy cutting scissors away. We're done with those. And I want to bear in mind, this is going to be my focal point piece. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to overlap it a little bit. I might overlap it a little bit at some point, but with some of these other papers, but it's going to be my focal piece. And so I'm thinking it'll go right there. Remember I said when I'm working, I'm thinking in terms of thirds. So it's 1/3, or we've got the thirds and the thirds. And so the points where they intersect here and here are my points of interest. So this coming here, that will become my point of interest, right? And then my secondary point of interest will need to be up here somewhere, right? Because that's how it works. That's how you keep your artwork in balance. Okay, so let's take some of these other papers and we're going to begin putting some of the other papers there, bearing in mind this is going to be here and we don't want to cover up too much of that background. So I'm just going to set this aside for now and let's get to work on this. I love this piece right here. So we're gonna cut this. I'm just gonna use a small piece of it like that. And you have to start somewhere, right? Yeah, that's what I like about this is it kind of matches together with this, which is the matte piece, right? So the colors are very similar. So I can build that up here and that can kind of become part of the interest that's going to draw our eye up there. But then, of course, there's going to be this down here. So see how that overlaps just a little bit? Yeah, perfect. Beautiful. Now, the paper that's right here is very thin and this paper is thick. So I'm going to use two different mediums. You could use one medium. You don't have to use two mediums, but I like to use the Bindex for the thinner papers. And so here, I'm just going to take some of the Bindex. Remember I said it's like a hand cream consistency. And I'm just going to put it just like we did with the nori paste, but now we're using an acrylic and it is an archival acrylic medium. It's just clear acrylic paint essentially. There we go. That one goes there. And I'm putting some on top as well. Okay, locked in. We got it. And then the next one, this one. Now I can use Bindex on here, but I find with the thicker papers, just my personal preference is I like the gel medium for the thicker papers. So I'm just going to take this. Let's see where I want it, kind of right there. Now I'm putting the gel medium on here. I like to watch Bob Burridge, Burridge on YouTube. He paints in a very loose fashion. And when he's doing collage, he uses a big fat brush and some gel medium, a big tub of gel medium. He adds a lot of water to it, gets everything like swishy, sloshy, and goes for it. It's fun to watch him. Okay, there we go. So there's that one. And now I want to do some, like this one needs to go on there somewhere. That's fun. That's the Asian zodiac wheel. But before we do that, I'm thinking up in this corner over here, maybe some music. So let's take this delicate music here. Now with delicate papers like this, they can often tear if you're using the thicker gel medium. So what I'm going to do is I am going to um, use the Bindex. So if you have delicate papers, like this is ephemera from Salmon's Girl, um, then I would recommend that you use the Bindex. Bindex is perfect for your more delicate papers. So let's get this one right in here. So putting down the Bindex, and then I don't want these two to be at the same level. Can you see that where this line is? I don't want to carry on that line. So I'm actually going to go a little bit above that line with this paper like that. There we go. But I do like to overlap my elements. So I just overlapped that element with the map. The map. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Staying on theme here. And then what else do we have? Just now, I've got music there. I think maybe I'm going to put some music down here as well. So this is a beautiful piece of music. Maybe I'll put some of this black underneath there first, because then it kind of almost looks like the little dots from music, doesn't it? Both of these are delicate papers. This is the rice paper, and this is the old music ephemera. So I'm just putting some of the Bindex, right? The reason I like the Bindex for delicate papers is it's not as thick as the gel medium, but it still has good body. And that's important when you're dealing with papers like this that may be more delicate and can tear. You don't want to have a lot um, of glumps underneath it, which you may have lumps with the gel medium because it's just thicker. Okay, what did I just do? I just overlapped that a little bit. Now I can see there was no gel medium right here. So I'm just lifting the area up where there was no Bindex and just putting it back down. So I've got Bindex on top and Bindex underneath. I've got so far 4 pieces on, they're all touching each other, right? Now, this is no exception. This is going to be touching that other one. See how I can just use the Bindex right over top of the other colors of paint? When it dries, it's going to dry clear. There we go. So I'm going to put this one here. What I'm looking at is, you see how there's an edge to here? I don't want this edge to match up exactly with that edge. So I'm kind of overlapping the edge this way just a little bit. And like that. Okay, lovely. Nice. And I'm sort of following the same theme, color theme here. I've got red and green, got some red here, red and yellow here with a little blue. There's a tiny bit of blue in there. So let's do, at this point, you can start auditioning things. So this, do I want to put that like right there? Yeet. And then if I put this over top of there, no, I want this to go up this way a little bit. There we go. So if that's there, but I don't want it to mimic that too much. So you know what I can always do? I can always take this and just tear it. Lovely. So I'm tearing this Asian zodiac wheel in half. Now these Asian papers, they come in if you're on Whatnot, I have a Joss paper pack, which is an Asian paper pack available in my Whatnot store. And it's under, if you just type in the word supplies, you'll find it. Okay, here we go. So I'm just going to sort of put this here. Fun. Okay, okay, I'm loving that. Loving that. And see how that goes there. Better, 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 better. Okay, so now I need something more over here and a little bit more over here. So let's look at um, the onion skin. This is from the pattern, the dress pattern. So let's tear some of the onion skin. And what do I want to do here? What I like about the onion skin is this color in the background will still show through. So I can sort of put it right here. Ooh, okay. I don't want to put this arrow going off the page. We want to keep our viewers' vision on the page, okay? So what I might be able to do, but it's okay if these little edges go off the paper because you can always cut them once it's dry. Okay. So do I want to do something like that where the arrow, nope, because the arrow is looking up and it's taking somebody off of the page. So maybe what I want to do, yeah, is if I put the arrow there, bringing people into our piece, and nope, that's going to cover it right up. Okay. So if I put it right here, that's going to cover it up there too. Okay, this is getting saved for another time. Not all pieces work. They don't all work. What about something like this? I like that. I like that a lot because it puts a line across the bottom here. So let's do that. This one I'm going to cut. So here we go. You don't have to always tear. You can cut. There we go. And see, I have some of this Bindex here in the lid. That's from me shaking it. So I'm going to grab it here and let's just put this. It's okay to use a big piece because this onion skin just sort of disappears into the background. I love that about it. There we go. And let's just put this right here. Doesn't matter if it goes over the edge. It doesn't matter if it's wrinkled. It's all good, y'all. It's all good. That's the beauty of this kind of collage is you just go with the flow. You let inspiration take over. You audition different things. It's okay. It's very relaxing because of that. Nothing's wrong. It's all right. Okay. You never mess up a collage like this because you can always go back and it's just another layer. That's what I say with acrylics and acrylic mediums. Honey, it's just another layer. Relax. Okay, so I'm feeling like I want a little something something over here from this collection that I showed you earlier of the, okay, of the prints from the book. So what do we want? What do we want? What do we want? I'm feeling like something. This is kind of cool. See this critter right here? It's very unusual. All right, let's look at some of the other things that I got here. This is a frog. Ooh, we should put a frog in there because we have, what is this called? We're doing like plant matter, right? So why don't we have a frog? And maybe the frog can be jumping across or something. Let's see. Isn't this one funny down here? There's like a bullfrog. Um, okay, what would be a good frog? There are a bunch of frogs here. Ooh, I see a frog that can go right up here. Let's get this little frog right at the top. Yoop. The thing with these images of the from that book that I showed you, Art in Nature, oftentimes the critters overlap one another. So it makes it very difficult sometimes to just cut out one. So that's a little frog right there. And what I'm going to do is I am going to put that frog there when the flower goes down. So this little frog is going to go here. when the flower goes down. So it's going to go after the flower. Whoop. There we go. Frog. And that's going to go down here for just a little surprise. Surprise. Okay, so right now I'm thinking we need something red. Some red. Ooh, something red over here. A little bit more red. A little bit more red. A little bit more red. Here's the word joy. I don't have to use a word, but hey, might as well. So here's the word joy right here. Oop. And we're just going to sort of tear this out. So what if I put that right there? That'll work. That will work. Okay. So lots of auditioning going on right now. Again, I'm using some of the Bindex. This is thin rice paper. So the Bindex will work perfectly with that. And we'll just put that there. So what am I doing? I'm overlapping the music. I'm overlapping the what do they call that? The zodiac, the Asian zodiac. Okay, cool. You see how I like using a palette knife? I just love using the palette knife because to me it's easier to get any bubbles out and really quickly put your collage down. But if you don't have a palette knife, just use a brush. You're fine. You're fine. It'll work with a brush. Okay. And then I want to put a little bit more of that red, this stuff over here in the corner. Let's see. Do I want it going this way maybe? Like that? No, maybe go here. Yes. Okay, that's better. It's good sometimes to repeat your designs. And so here, since I already have it where I want it, I'm just going to put a little bit of that down there. And then I'm going to lift this half and then put it underneath and then right there. There we go. Like I said, this medium is going to look white, but when it dries, it will be crystal clear. But I still want something in that little spot right there. Little spot. Do I or don't I? I don't know. I might not. Okay. This is a cool looking paper though, right here. I like this paper and it has some blue in it. So let's just take like a little strip right here. This is a marbled paper on rice paper. So let's just take this little strip and see what happens with that. Nope, it would have to be like that. So I'm wondering if that might. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to cut this little bit off. And then that will go like right there. But it has to come up and it has to overlap like that. Okay. So see, this is the point where I'm actually doing detail. The pieces are getting smaller, right? Now that wasn't quite placed right. So I just lifted it up a little bit and placed it correctly. And now we're going to do that. There we go. So that piece is touching this and it's touching down here. Okay, so I like those pieces to touch in different locations. And we have this random little piece here. So what am I going to do with that? I think I'm just going to put the random piece right here. Right? It's okay. Right now, it has no rhyme or reason, but actually, I'm thinking of when I put the frog on there. So I am thinking ahead. It's true. It's true. All right. I think we're at the point where we are ready to put this on there. Wow. How pretty is that? That is just so stinking pretty. And I know now what I'm going to do because I want to overlap it, right? But you see how I have this here and I have part of it there. So I think I'm going to end up putting the other part of it right there. And that leaf will show through. Or what if I put it underneath? I think I'm going to put it underneath actually. Okay, I just talked myself out of putting it on top. I'll do something else on top. Here we go. And a little bit more. I'm using it out of the lid. Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool. Now, if you're on Whatnot, one of the gifts I have for tonight, a givey, is a little pot of Bindex. So if you've never used it before, somebody's going to win some Bindex. Woohoo! Yay. All right, I need something more graphic in this area over here. So I'm going to let's grab some of the, what about this tree? This tree needs to go somewhere or not. What if I put the tree there and then I put this here? No, you lose the tree, don't you? You completely lose the tree. But I can put the tree there. No, no, no. Okay, you know how it goes here. Sometimes an element that you thought might work doesn't work. It doesn't always work. Now, I love this character right here with the long tail. See that character with the long tail? So I am going to put that over here. And to kind of anchor the bottom of the page, and I've got plenty of, see how I'm covering that right up? It does not matter. It's fine. It's fine. Do not be afraid to cover up what you've already done. It just adds more history. If anybody's looking closely at your work, they're going to be able to see there's something back behind there. What is that? And then it'll draw them in for a closer look, right? Now, this piece, I think it's time. It's time to put it there. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my palette, and I'm not going to use the Bindex. I'm going to use the gel medium. Hey there, Miriam over on YouTube said hello. So this is thick paper. So on the back, I'm going to put a layer of gel medium, and then I'm going to place it where I want it. So I'm going to use my, oops, hold on. I'm going to use my palette paper, which happens to have all kinds of little bits on it. Let's set those bits aside. And so I'm going to put this on the palette paper. Okay. So here I'm trying to get it so that I can bring this in closer to you. So let's set that aside. Here's the palette paper. So either on a palette paper or, in the mail, you get circulars all the time, right? And the circulars have multiple pages. So when I'm doing a bunch of large elements like this that are on this kind of paper that is thicker paper, I will just have those fold over um, handout, like the things that they send you in the mail, the circulars for grocery store discounts and stuff, like this week's discounts. And I will keep those, and then I do collage exactly like I put gel medium on the back of my pieces exactly like this, but on top of those. And then when it has gel medium around the outside, I just flip the page and then I do it more. And then I just flip the page and then it goes in the garbage. So it's a great way to use those up. So here I've got some gel medium and I'm putting it on the back of my piece. So it doesn't matter if the gel medium goes over the edge. That's the idea. We want it to go all the way out to the edge, right? So I'm going to put a good amount of gel medium on there. One of the reasons I like to use this palette paper is that it's a release paper, so it will release easily release this paper image for me after I've put all this on it. Okay, there we go. Now I have gel medium over the whole thing, all the way out to the edges. Nice, 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 nice. And with my palette knife, now I'm going to set it off to the side because now I'm going to grab the artwork like this. And then I'm going to use my palette knife. I'm going to get underneath here. And I'm going to lift this up. There we go. Now it's ready to place. Ah! So let's place it a little bit further down, a little further down. Oh, it's so pretty. Yes. So remember, I said to be sure that you're using pencils that are not water soluble, not watercolor pencils, regular pencils, because I'm going to put a layer of Bindex over top of this. And if I had watercolor pencils, the watercolor would run, and I don't want that. Nice. Oh my gosh, look how pretty. Look how pretty. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bit of the Bindex and I'm going over top of it to protect it, to seal it in there. Okay, I'm sealing in the pencil. And I'm also putting acrylic on it so I can go back with acrylic paint, acrylic markers, and go right over top of it once it's dry. Okay, awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome sauce. The paper is all like folding like that, so I'm not getting it perfect on there. There's some variation, but if you want it to be more even, all you do is grab a brush. So this is a nice fan brush. People are always like, what the heck do you use fan brushes for? Well, this is a perfect use for a fan brush. Is I'm just gently going over top of it like this. So I'm smoothing that out. And then we'll go over it this way. Nice. Now this is acrylic medium, so this brush has to go right into water, okay? So I have another thing of water here. I'm just putting it right in water. Otherwise it'll get all stiff. It can be repaired by just putting it into a cup with rubbing alcohol in it, but better not to have that happen. Oh my gosh, I love where this is going. Love, love, love it. Notice that we've covered up most of the background. It's okay. It's okay. But I create these backgrounds in my book like this so that I have something to start with. I'm not starting with just a blank white page. Okay. And I can see here, I need some more up here. I'm going to need maybe to work some more down here. Once this is dry, I'm going to go around it with acrylic paint. But let's put the little froggy on because I think the froggy is so cute. So again, I'm going to use the palette paper over here. It's thick paper. So I'm going to put the medium on the back of it. And then let's do this. So that's sort of hiding in there, right? He's sort of hiding in there, our little froggy friend. Nice. So the little froggy's overlapping the flower and overlapping the leaf, which means it's going to draw some attention to it. And then people are going to go, oh my gosh, that's so cool. That is a frog. What? Yes. Okay. Now I'm going to show you, let me see if the other piece is sufficiently dry that we were working on, because right now I'm done with this piece. I would, if I were doing a session on my own, I would continue. I would continue. There's a little bit more that I need to put on. I need a little bit more right here. I need a little bit more up in this area here. All right. So I would just continue to add a little here, add a little there, add a little here, add a little there. Actually, I know what I want to do up here right now. Let's do it. Let's do it. I know what I want to do up in this area. Here's some of the pattern paper, the onion skin. I just want to bring some onion skin up here. There we go. Lovely. I love how you can see through the onion skin, but it's an excellent transition. It's an excellent way to transition from one, um, bring pieces, elements together. Okay, good, good. That feels better. But there's more that I'll need to do to finish this up, but I am loving this right now. Loving that. I know one of the things I'm going to do with that after I'm finished with the collage is I'm going to go over it with this 3D element that we're going to use right now. Isn't that fun? Look at that. It's not completely dry, but it's dry enough for us to do the accent. I wanted to show you how to accent this with the 3D paint from Pebeo. So I'm going to set this aside. And I could, when this is dry, I can use my acrylic markers. I can use acrylic paint with a brush. I can do all kinds of stuff working on top of it because this, when it's dry, it's just an acrylic surface. Okay. So just think of it as an acrylic surface. This one, of course, has the nori paste on it that's holding it together, but I can still use it. I'm putting, oh, let me tell you something about these lids. If you want to be able to open it the next time, which often, hey there, I appreciate the comment from Eddie over on YouTube. Um, this, the edge of this can get a bunch of this medium on it as you're working with it. If you want to be able to open this the next time, which, you know, oftentimes I go to open one and I'm having to grab a wrench to open the dang thing. What you want to do is you want to make sure this area right here where it's going to screw down is clear of excess. So sometimes I'll either take it to the sink and rinse it out, or I'll just wipe it out with a paper towel. And then I use Vaseline. So you want to take some good old fashioned Vaseline, and we're going to do this. You go around the threads. So you're going to go all the way around here with Vaseline. And that way, you know, ask me how I know, right? From years and years and years doing this, oh my gosh. I just had one that was super hard to open yesterday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must not have put this on it. And then I also go around the top edge right here with some Vaseline. And then I put the lid on. Woohoo! Now I'm going to be able to get that lid back off the next time I want to use it. And I have to do it with this as well. So let's take a look here. I'm going to use a paper towel. Hold on a moment here. I'm going to use a paper towel. And I'm going around and around and around. There we are. So I just got a bunch off of there. You don't want, acrylic medium acts as a glue. And you don't want that to glue your lid on, which happens to me all the time. But I learned to do this years ago. Okay, so I'm going to go around the edge here. There are little bits there I'm going to get out. Okay, let's make sure it's good and clean. It's clean enough. And now I'm going to put my Vaseline on there. There we go. Vaseline it up, and then it'll just come right off. It's awesome, y'all. It takes an extra minute, but wow. Especially if you put your things aside and you're not going to use them for a while, it makes a huge difference to being able to get them open again or not. Okay, and then we're going to put some around the top here, just around the top edge. Nice. Okay, that way I will be able to open that again next time. Hallelujah. Okay, put the Vaseline away. Now, what I wanted to show you now is doing some 3D effects on here. So this one is with the nori paste, but it's going to be exactly the same with the one that has the acrylic medium on it. And that is, we're going to use a something called Cern Relief by Pebeo. And Cern Relief is a 3D paint. Now it's gonna it comes with a nozzle. The nozzle's already, this nozzle already has a hole in it. You don't have to cut the top. You only cut the top if you want uh, thicker. Hey, Mark V, welcome in on YouTube. Welcome in, welcome in. So you only cut this tip on this tube if you want the line to come out thicker. This is how it comes out from the tube. And notice I'm squeezing from the bottom. See how I can get thin lines like that? And then, but it's a 3D paint. It'll stay 3D like that. If I want it to be thicker, I can do two things. One is I can move more slowly and keep the pressure on. So I'm just putting pressure, but I'm going a little more slowly. So it's depositing. You see there, it's depositing more paint. Just think of this as a thick gold paint in a tube, okay? Um, the other thing I can do is I can cut the tip. So let's go ahead. What the heck? I'm going to cut the tip because I have lots of these tips. I'll show you in a minute. I'm just going to cut the tip and then let's see. There we go. So it's coming out a little bit thicker. This was the thin line. Now it's thicker and I can get it even thicker by just cutting it down, cutting it down, cutting it down, cutting it down. Okay. Um, but bear in mind when you get them, there's already a hole in it and it's for the fine work. Okay. And then let me show you on this piece that I did for the workshop. So what I did was there's a postage stamp, a postage stamp, a postage stamp. So I like to put little frames around my postage stamps when I embed them in a collage. And so you can see it does shrink a little bit because it's water based. Okay, it cleans up with water. So it does shrink a little bit when you use it. You can always go back over top of it to get, deeper and deeper if you like. Here's my signature. Whoops. There's my signature with it right there. You see, I love that 3D. It's just a little bit of a 3D effect. Love that. Love, love, love. So also this Cern relief from Pebeo comes in a whole bunch of different colors. So this one is just gold. So that is, that's this one right here that says King Gold. And then there's Vermeil, which looks like an antique gold, rich gold, which is a little more deep yellow, transparent. Sometimes I sign if I have a piece of abstract art and it can go this way, this way, this way, or the other way, depending on the purchaser. Then I use the transparent or the transparent with glitter, which has a little bit of glitter in it. I'll use either one of those to sign my name on an abstract piece. And that way they can't see it unless you come right up on top of it and they can then hang their artwork any direction that they want. That's what I put on the front of it for my signature. Then there's black, there's imitation lead, which is kind of a gray, copper, and then pale gold, which is like a green, almost a bronzy green gold. So those are the different colors that it comes in. But isn't it fab? It's just so fun. And let me tell you about the tops to the tips. Um, I have a box over here with all of my goodies in it. Hold on a second, let me grab that so you can see. Eee. Okay, I cannot be without Cern Relief in my studio, period, end of story. Must have at all times, okay? And this is my box of Cern Relief, plus the folks from Pebeo have this other more colors in a Deco 3D, but they don't offer it in America. But I got these when I went to Europe with them. So this is you see my box here? Isn't it crazy? Now, as you use these, you should roll up the end. So see how I was squeezing from the end? I almost always squeeze from the end. You'll see people that hold it like a pencil like this, but these are metal tubes. And if you hold it like a pencil and use it, what's going to happen is it's going to pinch on the sides. And if it pinches on the sides, it can break because it's metal. So if you squeeze it all the way down and you've got paint here and you've got paint here, but this is squeezed and you can get a little break wherever it is that you squeezed it down. So that's why I grip it from the back end. And if I need to like write something, I use my other hand underneath it to guide it as I'm squeezing it from the bottom. Then because I'm squeezing it from the bottom, as I'm using it, I'm rolling it. Okay. And that keeps the paint up inside the tube. Because I had some folks at Pebio ask me one time, if I had ever burst, if it had ever broken on me, the metal. And I said, no, why? And they said, oh, it happens to people all the time. And I said, well, maybe because I'm squeezing it from the back end, because my daughter, when I gave these to my daughter to use, they were using it like a pencil and they got a split on the side. And I said, oh, that's why. These are metal tubes and they can't take it if you're squeezing it down on the sides. So you just keep squeezing it up from the bottom and rolling it as you do it. So see this big one of copper. Here's one of the rich gold there. And you can see I love the copper. I use a lot of the copper. Here's the transparent with glitter. Oh, there is a color that was new since I made this chart, and it's white. Oh, I love the white. So that one's transparent. Where's the white one? Yeah, here's white. So here's one that says white. Now, another thing about these tubes is like I'm pressing the tube and I can feel that it's soft. I can feel that it's soft, that it moves, that the paint is inside here. Perfect. If these get frozen, they will get hard and then they're no good. You can't use it. So there is like during the winter time, Pebio in general does not ship these. But if for some reason you receive one, squeeze it first, just a little bit. Squeeze it and make sure it is able to be squeezed. And if it is, the paint inside it is good. If it's hard, you'll be able to feel it, and then you'll know that you need to request a exchange because it will have gotten frozen. And when it gets frozen, it just gets hard and you can't use it. All right. So don't keep it out in your garage if it gets to freezing temperatures in your garage or something like that. All right. You want to be sure that you keep it somewhere that's, the same temperature you would like. Um, okay. I was talking about the tops. You can buy packs of just the tops here. You know how I just cut it, right? I just cut that top. Well, you can buy a set of tops like this and then you're able to replace those tops. But what I do is when I finish a tube, which you can see this one's almost done, I take the top off and I take this top and I throw it in a glass of water and I let it work on it for a little while, like overnight. And the next day I'll take a pin and I put a pin through it and then that reopens it up and I just rinse it out and then I have a clean one. So I have, the only time I really needed a pack was the first pack. And after that, all the rest of them that I used, you see how I saved the tops for them. And that way, it doesn't matter if you cut a top, but you want a skinny line, you just grab one like this. Now, I test these all the time to be sure that they're clear by just blowing into it. Yep, I can blow through this one. So I know that it's good and it's ready to go. So if I wanted the thin lines again, I would take this one off right here. This is the one that I cut. Okay. And I would put this one on like this. And now it'll give me a thin line again. I'm back to having a thin line. Okay. What am I going to do with this one? I'm going to take this one that has paint in it. I'm going to stick it in a glass of water, make sure that it's getting wet. See there? And then that will dissolve. And in the meantime, I'll just save this lid and then I'll clean that out tomorrow, put a pin through it, and then it'll be ready to go. So there goes the top, the black top. Now I do, it's important to make sure that you have the black top on them all the time, because if you leave the top off, this will get dry inside here. But of course, you just put a pin through it, put it in a glass of water and clean it back out, okay? It's just, I hate to wait. That's why I have plenty of spares. All right, now, as I'm using these, I also will wipe them on a paper towel. So there's a little bit coming out right there. So I make sure that I wipe it or I start it on the paper towel, make sure, because if pressure builds up in here as you're using it, it'll, bleh, you know, a bunch of it'll come out and bleh. Okay, so we're gonna use some gold. Ooh, what about black? Black. Where's one of my blacks? Wow. Okay, look, look, look. It's like empty. I don't even think I can get any more out of that. Why in the heck was I even holding on to that? Okay. Um, here is an imitation lead. That's a nice looking one. There's a black one. Look, somehow it got in there without, okay, so I'm just gonna take this. Let's make sure that it's still, yeah, it's still fluid. Putting that lid in there, putting a new top on it. Let's see, where's that top that I just cut? That was nice. This is an old one that I cut, actually. Okay, so let's squeeze this. It's coming down. I can see it. It's coming down. It's coming down. Ooh, it's thick though, right? It's a little bit thick because it's been in there for a long time. Wow. Okay, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna roll this up. Yee. And I'm gonna put a black lid on it because it needs a black lid to protect it. Okay. All right, maybe there's one. I want to show you how to open them. Let's see, let's see. Copper, that one's obviously open already. See this one. I want to see if it's open yet. It's already open. You see how you can see some copper right there? If that, if it's brand new, there's a metal over top of that. And the way that you open it is that you leave this black lid on and you take this top. And if that was the metal, you just take it and you push it in and then it pops it. And then you turn it around and you put the lid back on it. And then I just wipe this off. Okay, that's how you open it. If you have trouble pushing it in, then I turn this over like this and I hold it on top of my surface. And then I turn this over and holding it right up near the top. Then I push on it and then that will also open it. Okay, that's how they're opened. Let me see what color I want to use. Of course, I want to use gold. Let's see how this, I don't know if, yeah, love the copper. I have lots of copper because I love the copper. Okay, so let's leave that copper out. We'll put this aside here. Oof. So we're just let's put a few finishing touches on this. I'm not completely done with it, but I want to show you how this works. So here's the gold. We have gold in this piece already because some of these pieces that we laid down in the collage have gold in them. So we can bring some gold. Why don't I take the gold? Let's see. It's coming out. It's coming out. That's another reason why I like having the palette paper next to me. And let's say, oh, it's coming out fast, fast and furious. And I want to go around the star like this. And that way, I'm sort of just bringing attention to this feature. There's the starfish here. Nice. Isn't that cool? So now there's a 3D effect around the starfish. You can use this on top of any like acrylic, or in this case, the paper collage. I don't recommend putting this cern relief just on top of paper by itself. Like this paper has a medium on top of it, so it will stick to it. It needs a non-porous surface to stick to. If I take this and I just put it right onto watercolor paper, it can rub off, and you don't want that. So this is designed to use on a surface that's already sealed. And here is a, let's see, I have a circle here, and a circle here. So I'm gonna make a circle like this. Maybe I do it sort of as a, like this, right? You see that? right there. Isn't that cool? That is so cool. Okay. And so I'm gonna put a little circle up here, not as big as that other one. Nice. Now it's beginning to come together. This is putting some of the finishing effects on it. Now let me take the copper because we kind of have some of the color almost of the copper there. And so notice I'm pushing from the back end. I'm getting it to flow. I'm cleaning the tip. Maybe I want to use the copper like right here to kind of accentuate that design. And here, I'm just going over top of the paper. Kind of interesting, right? How you can add that 3D effect. Nice. For something very unusual, right? Is the CERN relief. So let me bring that up so you can see. Do you see the 3D? And then you can see that that's why I use this to sign my name quite often on my pieces because I love having that 3D effect. I don't always use the 3D effect, but when I do collages, oftentimes I like to add these 3D elements and then sign it with a 3D effect as well. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that workshop. I really enjoyed sharing it with you, and I hope that you will get some paper and either some nori paste or some acrylic mediums and grab some papers and have some fun putting together your own collages.